Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I'm excited to share my conversation with Marliese Bartz. She is a business improvement strategist who is dedicated to helping companies both run better for employees and customers. Her consulting approach blends experience as a designer with big business tools and from a lean, agile, change management, Six Sigma. She's got it all. She has many tools in her toolbox, and she really helps companies with what we call visual problem solving. She is famous for her sticky notes, colorful sticky notes, and for infographics. She's got altogether 25 years of experience. She is a certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, a certified change management professional, and she has an MBA in marketing and management. Welcome to the show today, Marliese.
Thanks, Felina. Good to be here.
Wonderful. So let's go back. I understand you haven't always been carrying around sticky notes with you. So take us along your career path, and then we'll get to the point of where you launched your business.
Sure. No, I actually have been using some form of visualization for my entire career. It wasn't always sticky notes. I actually started out as an interior designer. And back then in the 90s, we were still doing everything on paper. So I drew everything on paper by hand, floor plans, 3D visualizations, etc. So I kind of have always been doing something tactile that way. And so that was kind of, a fun little foyer into my visualization background. So I was a designer for a long time and really enjoyed that. And when I came out to California, I had an opportunity to sort of transition into more of like a marketing role within the design community. And so that was sort of a natural progression of tying my design background into something different. So I was doing more marketing in the interior design community. And then I kind of did a whole shift and went back to school for my master's and went into corporate America, which, seems like a really big change. But, in San Diego specifically, that spoke to me more than the design community here. The design community was just different, and it just wasn't speaking to me the same way that it had been previously. And so, I took the opportunities to really just sort of reinvent myself and went into corporate America and did had various roles in corporate America. But once I had the opportunity to become a Lean Six Sigma professional, I leaped at it because it sort of took all of my background and made it all kind of come together in one really great, amazing package that made super logical sense to me. And then I kind of stayed in corporate for a long time and then eventually launched my business. And I know we're going to talk about that here shortly, so I won't go into that. But
Yeah. Few questions before we get there. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from the East Coast, and so spent a lot of time in New York and Pennsylvania before I came out to California.
And what brought you to California?
My husband at the time had graduated from graduate school and got a job offer, and so we made the trek.
All right. So you made it to the West Coast. Let's go back into this conversation of corporate America. What was that like? Where did you spend your time and what were you doing there?
So I had a couple different roles, but probably the largest amount of my time was spent in a technology company that focused on medical device. And I had a lot of different roles. I was in finance and did some contracts work and was doing some small process improvement type projects. And then when they started what they called an operational excellence program, which was really a Lean Six Sigma based program, I was one of the first recruits into the program. So spent, a big bulk of my career then kind of doing nearly every role in a Lean Six Sigma organization, because I kind of grew up in the organization as it was, being established and sort of blossoming, which I think was a great experience because I was able to be trained at basically every level of a typical organization, which now, of course, helps me when I'm trying to help other organizations do the same. I can say, I've done that role before and really have done that role, truly. So
absolutely.
So it was a really great experience.
Okay, so I want to continue to back up here. What exactly is a Lean Six Sigma black belt?
Okay. So really a Lean Six Sigma, that's a tricky question.
I know.
There's some interpretation out there right now, but really what it comes down to is there's two different tool sets, if you will. One is Lean and one is Six Sigma. And they've been used for many, many, many years in a lot of different capacities, and they've been called many, many things over the years too. So some people who've been around a long time may have heard of total quality management. Mm-hmm. Some people, may think back to some statistical classes that they took, and they actually were learning some of the Six Sigma elements, and they may not have known it. So the concepts behind the tool sets have been around for a really long time and have been applied, over, literally hundreds of years. And so they get kind of packaged into tool sets over the time to, sort of be able to use them in different ways. And so Lean and Six Sigma as two separate tool sets are, sort of the current way that they are packaged, but they've been sort of, branded, if you will, in different ways over the years. Now they're kind of morphing, to be honest with you. A lot of the concepts are morphing into Agile. Mm. So that being said, they really are tool sets that focus on a couple things. Lean focuses on reducing waste. So how can we reduce the waste in our process, which then will help us make things run more efficiently or faster or better? And then what Six Sigma does is says, how can we make our process perfect? How can we make it so that there's not a lot of variation in our process, so that it's perfect every time, or that your customer experiences it the exact same way every time, if you think about it that way. And so a lot of practitioners will choose one or the other tool set, and I choose to use them together because they're stronger together, and then bring in some of the other best practices, if you will, that are now kind of currently out there, Agile, Scrum, some of these other modalities. They just make your tool set stronger. And so I think the message I like to tell people is that, don't be intimidated by some of these, some of these tool sets. They are just trying to bring together best practices to help them work better together and to be stronger tools. And then you pull, whatever you need out to help whichever situation, whichever client needs, what they need at that time.
Well, I do have to say, the phrase black belt brings a visual to the picture. So I can see where, people will kind of attribute what they want to that phrase. But as somebody who doesn't have a black belt, that sounds pretty, that's like the highest level you can get, right? I mean, you are an expert at these processes. Is that right?
Yes. So, there is a visualization that they use in this modality, and they do have, white belt, yellow belt, green belt, black belt, and then also master black belt. And it is really just a denoter of level of achievement. There are certain criteria behind each one of those, as far as how much training, how many projects, who you've been mentored by, there's testing involved, there's credentialing, et cetera. So, each level has its own set of criteria. And so the highest in that modality is a master black belt, which I'm not technically certified to be, but I probably have enough experience to qualify as one after all this right now, but have not actually, done the testing, et cetera, for that. But yeah, it is kind of a visualization that when I talk to people, sometimes they get, I kind of get the tilted head sort of, strange.
Like, are you going to karate chop me right now? No, I'm just kidding.
Right. I do. I definitely get that a lot. So, you have to kind of back that up a little, but it's really just to help people, I hope, understand a level of achievement.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It sounds pretty badass. I'm just going to say that. So I love introducing you. I'm like, here's Marliese Bartz. She is a Six Sigma black belt. Awesome. All right. So I want to move the conversation into this world of entrepreneurship. So you have been an entrepreneur now, about 8 years, and talk about the journey towards that. What were some of the decisions that you started to make to look at this opportunity to lean out and start your own business?
Well, I have to be honest. I'm what I call an accidental entrepreneur. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I never thought I would be a consultant. It really wasn't something that was ever, kind of in my purview. And it kind of happened accidentally. And I say that because, my story is that in 2011, my husband and I are both Lean Six Sigma black belts. We were both working in corporate America, and we both got laid off on the same day.
Oh my goodness.
And so, while that sounds very traumatic, it actually was the start of sort of this accidental journey, because had that not happened to me, I may not have ever thought to do my own thing. And it just really wasn't something I had in my vision. So when it happened, what we had decided to do as a family, because they had offered us either other roles or packages to, either to stay or to leave. And so what we decided was that he would take the role and stay, and I would take the package. And so what that enabled me to do was to actually be sort of free from the constraints of corporate America and to think about things a little differently. And so I looked at it as a gift. And my daughter was small at the time, so I thought, okay, I'm going to take this gift and I'm going to figure out something different, something that's going to work better for me. And so that was really the thought process, and it was sort of accidental, sort of blessing in disguise, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
But, that was really the thought process.
And did you go straight into the business you're in now? Did you explore some different things?
No, I honestly stayed home with my daughter for a while, and just kind of, let things sort of settle and really tried to, take that time to enjoy the time that I was given. And then when I first started out, I thought, well, I want to do something totally different. I don't want to do Lean Six Sigma anymore. I just wanted to kind of do something totally different. And so I kind of teamed up with some folks, and we were going to start a different business. And, it was still about streamlining, and, there were still some pieces there that were pulling on my experience, but I really just kind of wanted to do something totally different. And, so I explored that for a little while. And I think that through that journey, what kept coming to me was this thought process of how I think about things and how I think about streamlining things, all the time, and think about how to make things better all the time. And so even though I was working on this other business idea and trying to make that happen, it kind of kept all sort of leading me down the same path of pulling out sticky notes and problem solving, on the spot with people and, just kind of always trying to think about how to make things better. And it kind of just kept happening over and over again. And I finally realized, well, why am I fighting this sort of very natural thing for me? Why am I trying to do something that's different when this other thing just comes so naturally to me? And, I would help people and they would have a problem and I would like write it on the back of a napkin, literally during coffee. And then I'd turn it around and show it to them and they would just go like, oh my gosh, how did I not think of that kind of thing? And I just kept doing that. And it was like, and for me, it was easy, right? Like for me, it was like an extension of me, but for them, they might've been struggling with that thing for a week. And so it just kind of, it was my own aha moment, I guess, to then realize that I had this ability that maybe not everybody else had to really look at things and sort of in a more simplified way to get to a problem or to get to a resolution or a solving, method, and then really help them kind of literally get unstuck with whatever that problem was. And because it kept happening over and over, and there was a period of maybe a month or two where it happened so many times in a row that I just couldn't ignore it anymore. Like I couldn't, I just could not continue to say, okay, you should do this other thing over here, even though this one is so natural and it just keeps happening to you over and over and over again. And so then it was like, okay, I need to not fight it. I need to just admit that there's something else there. And so then I said, okay. And I started kind of going down the path of starting to help, other business owners and using sticky notes and all that fun stuff. And it just, after that, it really just kind of started to flow much more naturally.
I am glad to hear that because you are so talented at what you do. We are grateful for you bringing your talents to the small business community. But I know you also work with much larger companies as well, or organizations. Talk about some of the work you're doing right now in your business.
Sure. So I have a portfolio that's pretty vast. I do have, a couple of small businesses, a couple of medium businesses, a couple of large businesses, and now just recently the military is a new client. So I have kind of the gamut, and it keeps things interesting and fun. But more specifically, I would say I have a lot of companies that support healthcare. And they either support healthcare directly by manufacturing products, or they might have services that service healthcare. And then I also have one client that has 140 clinics across the country. So that's, actual healthcare in workflow type situations. And so I do a lot in that space. And I think that's, because I came out of corporate America and had been in that field of, medical device. And then I also have clients that develop software. And so that's really where a lot of the agile principles have come. And I've started to marry the Lean and Six Sigma with how they develop software using agile.
Yep.
And so that's kind of been a really cool integration. And those companies are typically, they're still pretty large, but, typically growing, they're faster moving. They have kind of different cultures, obviously, than some of the healthcare space. And so I do a lot of work with them, and they get into other cool things like design thinking, which is also a modality for me, obviously bringing in my designer background.
Yeah.
So that gets really, really fun. And so I get to do a lot of interesting things with those types of teams. And then, like I said, my newest client, which should be starting hopefully next week, is the military. So that's going to be a brand new adventure, and hopefully using a lot of different modalities to help them in their next set of transformation.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big client for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot to navigate there. I want to pause
Yes.
on something you said because this phrase design thinking is all over the place. What exactly is design thinking?
Well, I think there's a couple different definitions of that hanging around right now, but in my mind, design thinking is trying to walk in your customer's shoes.
Mm.
And it could be from the design of a user interface
Hmm.
for your customer. It could be from the design of a customer service process for your customer. It could be from the design of, if you think about an internal customer being your employees
Mm.
on a manufacturing floor. So the way I like to think about it is we are designing as if we are the customer or the user of our product and service. And there's a lot of tools and, facilitation techniques and things like that you can wrap around all of that to kind of help teams do that. But for me, it's a natural extension, I think, of what I had always been focused on, because I had always been looking at what's the customer experience, what's the customer journey, because a lot of the Six Sigma experience, right, a lot of the Six Sigma focus, if you will, is how do we make that experience for the customer the same every single time? And then to do that, well, what is it that the customer wants as the experience, right? So you have to understand all of that expectation from the customer side before you would design a process regardless. So for me, it's just a natural extension, again, of what I've been doing for many, many years, repackaged, rebranded into, some different tools, some different techniques. There's different lingo, and, there's definitely some additional layers on there when you're talking about designing software and things like that. But the core concepts and the goals are very, very much the same of what I've been practicing for years.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I know the little I learned about some of these processes in school, in both my undergrad and graduate degree, were a lot of times coming out of manufacturing, right? This process improvement, how do we cut, steps in the process down? But it is, of course, now the world we live in is much more, especially in the US, much more about the service industry. And so taking some of those concepts out of manufacturing and into the service segment of how we interact with clients and what that process looks like, it is interesting. And as you said, now even the further evolution of that is the online experience, right? I know companies are spending millions of dollars, rightfully so, really understanding, for example, a consumer banking experience. You log on to your bank and you're really, God, Lord, I don't know how long ago it was since I actually walked into a bank branch and spoke with somebody, right? Like my only interaction with the company is through that online experience. And I know there's just significant resources that are going into that as they should, and yet continuing to change the industry and the focus.
It's true. And again, that's why I always like to say that don't be intimidated by the lingo of the day, whatever the lingo of the day is, right? Now it's agile and design thinking and all that, but these are all things that we've been thinking about in business forever, right? Forever. And it's just changing the location sometimes as to that experience that you're thinking about. It's not, the greeting face to face of the shop owner when he had his Main Street shop, right?
Yep.
It's now, what does that look like when I log on to my iPhone and try to, go through an experience to get something done. But not always, that's kind of the different, the different spectrums or the ends of the spectrum. There's still a lot of business being done face to face, especially in healthcare, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So in healthcare, it's all about patient experience, right? And that's, but it's the same idea. They are the customer in that instance, and there is process built around everything that patient or that customer goes through. Mm-hmm. And so really design thinking and, thereby Lean Six Sigma as well is an extension of that experience, and how do we make that the best experience possible, and how do we make sure we exceed their expectations, and making a process that can do that, that's capable of doing that. Yeah. And capable of doing that every single time, regardless of the customer themselves, if that makes sense.
Yep. Well, the healthcare industry certainly needs your help, Marliese. So continue the good work you're doing. Obviously, you've taken on the military as a client, so that is a big step. What else is on the horizon for your business?
I have been sort of using my sticky notes and my visualization throughout my business in a very informal way. I have always had a vision of making it more of a very defined type of problem solving mechanism for people, because it really resonates with people. And, I think that teaching some of the skills, some of the sort of the problem solving and facilitation skills that I use behind the use of the sticky notes and the drawings and the infographics and things like that can be really powerful for people. And so I have thought about, how can I help others to do that themselves, to really learn how to sort of think critically about some of these things that maybe they come across, or problems in their business, or even in their home life, or, whatever things that they need to work out. How could I help them to leverage some of that? Because when I use these concepts of these facilitation techniques with people, it's very powerful. Mm-hmm. And, they have these aha moments, and they can literally see it, because we've got it all up, in front of them, drawn out in something that's easy for them to understand in their own words. Most likely, because it's not me solving the problem per se, it's me helping to facilitate them to solve the problem. So that's kind of always been something that I've been using, and I still have to land on exactly what that would look like to be something to help people in a bigger way versus just me myself. So that's kind of there, but I don't have kind of a super formal pathway for it yet. But I do think that would be kind of my bigger imprint to help people sort of with problem solving and critical thinking, whether it's in business, in school, in personal life, what have you. So we'll see. More to come on that.
Exciting. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that. So if our listeners want to get in touch with you, Marliese, what is the best way for them to do that?
The best way to find me is on LinkedIn under Marliese Bartz. I'm hopefully the only one there, so it should be pretty easy to find me.
Perfect. Awesome. We will send people there. Thank you so much for your time. I have definitely enjoyed our conversation and learned a bit along the way.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.